Look at the rig. My hero with the inactive jungling. Guys, this video is tough to make, but it has to be done. Now, by the end of this, if you guys take another pro game seriously, send me your doctor's details and I'll book you in for a new head. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be going over one of the worst jungling performances in recent human history. And it pains me to say it because the culprit is, in my humble opinion, the best player ever. Let's get AIDS. Canyon should be jailed for this performance. Now, I want to let you in on a secret. Lots of students have come at me with the proactive versus reactive jungling question, which is fair because if there really is a superior playstyle, anyone would want to know about it. But it's a weird question because it actually makes no sense to me anyway, and it comes from a bloke who wants to screw yordles. I'm just trolling, I love Donal. But seriously, if you think about it, reactive is not the antonym of proactive. The opposite of being proactive is being inactive. That's all there is to it. Both of these just happen to be types of reactions. For example, if two junglers are given the same information, right, one of them might decide to react proactively, which might involve invading, ganking, diving, whereas the other might decide to react inactively, which might involve farming their own camps. The reason I've tried to clarify this, and hopefully I've done so, is because what you are about to witness is the most inactive jungling I've ever seen. When the game is crying out for Canyon to be proactive. And there might be an ulterior reason for this, and I could probably guarantee there is. Canyon does not get to 1900 LP on the Korean Super server jungling like this. So we're going to do this in sort of an interactive way where I'm going to present you with 3 tests, so a bit of information, and I want to see how you would react to this information. So the facts of this game are as follows before we really get into the tests. Canyon is a Conqueror Vi against a Conqueror Lee Sin. Sounds like a pretty even matchup, right? It might get interesting if Vi stops the Lee Sin's Q2 with her own Q, but it sounds pretty even. Canyon has a Flash Ignite Rumble top against a Flash TP Volibear. This could definitely get interesting. On the bot side of the map, he has a Caitlyn Lux against a Blitz Kai'Sa. And whenever you have a Caitlyn, well, you need her to get ahead in the laning phase, otherwise you might as well just pick another AD carry. So where would you path in this game? Well, I think lots of players might say towards the Rumble, because it's a melee matchup, and honestly, it's a lot better than going towards an Ornn Malphite lane, but you are leaving Caitlyn and Lux to fend for themselves potentially against 3 champions, Blitzcrank and Kai'Sa obviously, and Lee Sin as well. And like I kind of explained before, Caitlyn is just a huge part of any team. She has to get going early game. So Canyon decides to path bot lane, which I agree with. I think this reaction to the information is correct. Now, from Lee Sin's point of view, BDS actually drafted Volibear into the Rumble here, almost saying, we're going to pick Volibear into Rumble because we know we can beat the Rumble with this pick, especially Volibear. Like, you're picking Volibear to have some sort of presence in the early game and laning phase. So I'd actually like to see the Lee Sin path towards this lane to put pressure on the TP-less Rumble. If they can tower dive him or just kill him in the early game, should be really good for them. But Lee Sin actually decides to run bot, so Xiao's reaction, hopefully I pronounced that properly, his reaction to this information is different to mine, and I do think it is actually a little bit worse for the reasons I just mentioned. Now, at the 230 mark in this game, and this is just such a luxury whenever you have mid lane prio, Showmaker, Canyon's mid laner, puts a ward on the enemy Lee Sin's Raptors. This is so helpful because now we know that Lee Sin just cleared his red buff side, including red buff, and he's now pathing towards bot, most likely anyway. This is super helpful because now we know exactly where Lee Sin has been and therefore where he's going to go. And this is the first test I want to give you, given this information. Number 1, Lee Sin is pathing bot. Number 2, mid and bot lane have priority. What would your reaction be? If you want to invade the Lee Sin on his bot side, whether you run there straight away after your walls and before Raptors, or if you do your red buff and then run in there, this is a proactive reaction to that information. If you want to keep clearing your camp, so Raptors, red buff, and then Krugs, essentially full clearing, this is an inactive response to that information. So what is the best reaction and why? Like, how do we actually quantify this? Well, I think farming camps is a bad reaction to the map state because, well, if I'm Lee Sin, I might be somewhat relieved I'm not getting pressured on, at the very least, like my blue buff and Gromp, and it might be true that BDS has a strong skirmishing boss side with Blitzcrank, Kai'Sa damage, right, the LeBlanc as well. It could get pretty spicy, but if you're DK, as long as you just dodge a Blitzcrank hook, which is pretty telegraphed, you should be chilling. And as long as you do that, like BDS, the laners, LeBlanc, and Kai'Sa are going to miss valuable golden experience. So this indirect pressure, if you will, on these lanes will actually win the lanes even harder if BDS decide to rotate and help Lee Sin anyway. And I guess that's the power of priority. It should be a win-win. So if farming camps is not optimal, how do we actually go about invading? The proactive reaction. Well, because I think this jungle matchup is somewhat even, I actually think red buff matters therefore. Like a red buff Vi against a red buff Lee Sin, I think the prio in both of these lanes wins that jungle 1v1 in Vi's favor. But without red buff, like, you have to understand when you're invading, you're probably 1v1ing the enemy jungler for maybe like 5 to 10 seconds before an enemy champion or maybe even a teammate is actually physically there, able to use their spells, right? So because you're isolated for a little bit of time, that 1v1, we have to take into account red buff here that's missing for Vi. So based on that info, what I think Canyon should do is farm red buff after his walls, and then he should just run into the Lee Sin's blue buff area. Because like I said, I think the extra damage and the slow will matter in an extended fight like that against a Conqueror champion. If it's a first strike Kayn or Electrocuted Echo, go in there and just knock them out. So if Canyon does his red buff, which is definitely plausible in this game because he is 5 seconds ahead of Lee Sin in terms of clearing anyway, he will easily have enough time to pressure the enemy Lee on his blue and Gromp. He could run towards the Lee Sin's wolf camp and then blast cone over into the blue buff brush, and then he can just wait for Lee Sin to turn the corner after clearing his wolf camp. If you are doing invades like these though, please remember to ping on my way and maybe even assist ping your teammates. Most of them are not going to have mini maps. You need to tell them beforehand. You don't want to go in there, die, and then start spam pinging people because, well, everyone hates you and you do look like a bit of a troll. Instead, what Canyon ends up doing is something that I was not expecting. He does Raptors and full clears his entire bot site. Is this really Canyon, or is someone dressed up as him? I guess he got pre-worlds coaching from JMO or something. Thankfully though, one of these junglers is actually paying attention to their surroundings. So Shio, the Lee Sin, knows that Neeko warded his Raptors. Therefore, Neeko does not have a ward on the bot side of the map. So in terms of ganking mid lane, the Neeko will not be aware of that because Lee Sin would be in fog. Unless, of course, like Canyon decided to put a ward down before farming his Raptors, but that's very unlikely, right? So while doing his wolf camp, Lee Sin sees that there is a trade in the mid lane that reduces Neeko to around half HP. Because LeBlanc is such an amazing setup champion with her E, it's pretty much impossible to flash out of the range of it, and it guarantees a Lee Sin Q. This means that even if Neeko has flash, she is going to die if LeBlanc can land her chain. This is an easy first blood for the Lee Sin, and this is what jungling is all about. He reacted to that information. Yes, it was proactive jungling, but that is what jungling is about. You being able to take in all of this information and choose the right reaction. Meanwhile, now you might think, well, the game is completely GG at this point, but it's really not. And as far as jungling goes, it's still pretty good for Canyon. And this is where we come to test number 2. So the information we have, number 1, Lee Sin cleared his topside, did walls because he has 16 CS, ganked mid, and ran back to his blue buff side. The second bit of information, Vi's level 4 after full clearing. Third bit of information, mid and bot lanes still have that same priority. Even though Showmaker died, he'll TP back and regain control over the lane. So how would you control Vi here? So the first kind of reaction to this is Canyon could decide to run into Lee Sin's blue buff area, thereby putting pressure on a weaker jungler because of the level diff, and quickly make use of his prio mid and bot, which are still there like I said. Or the second reaction, Canyon could just farm the scuttle grab for about 10 seconds like he does, giving the enemy Lee Sin time to do blue buff for free. Canyon chooses the inactive response for the second time, and you can probably tell from my tone that I think this is pretty bad. But why? Well, I think this one is even worse, because Canyon now hard wins the 1v1. Like at level 3, it might be pretty 50-50, but when you're level 4 against level 3, it's probably like a longsword's diff in terms of strength, which is big, right? And it's not like the lanes have really changed. He still has double prio. But there is still one more test for you. And this one I've saved the hardest for last. Let's see if you can get it. So after Canyon recalls, and as far as jungling camps goes, running topside is indeed the best option. His Gromp will respawn around 415, top Scuttle Crab is also up, and he can simply full clear again. He can maybe even look to pressure the Lee Sin's top camps with his mid and top prio once again. But jungling isn't just about farming camps in the right order and at the right time. That's obviously important if you're choosing to do that, but I'm going to show you how the bot lane looks when Canyon recalls and just as he runs out of base. If you were a level 4 Vi with red buff, are you like, I don't know, cracking your knuckles looking at this Blitzcrank and Kai'Sa? Because I would be, even though my knuckles aren't that big. But yeah, especially when you factor into this equation that the Caitlyn's full HP and the Lux is full HP. They should be inviting the Vi to join this bot lane party. And what am I getting at here? Well, potentially diving and picking up 2 kills, right? It looks really juicy. So running out of base here, and this is test number 3, the information we have, number 1, both junglers' topside camps are spawning very soon. And these camps will be level 4 and worth good golden experience. Number 2, the second bit of information, Blitz and Kai'Sa are not even half HP. With no health pots, permanently shoved under tower. So how do you react? Do you run to the top crab, putting yourself in a position to then full clear back down to bot? Or number two, do you run straight back to bot side, looking to dive the Blitz and Kai'Sa, leaving your top camps up? The first option, going to top crab and doing whatever else after that, is pretty solid. It's sound. You get good golden experience, and who doesn't want that? But what you're giving up here is more than what you gain. In other words, you can farm the crab and then you're respawning Gromp and wolves and you're chilling, but that's the issue here. You're chilling when there is a big bit of heat on the minimap, the bot lane, to potentially double kill the enemy bot lane and start a snowball that would become unstoppable. That sounds way better, right? The other reason why this is so good, we touched on the information earlier. Both junglers' top camps are spawning soon, not just Vi's, but Lee Sin's. And these are really the coordinates, if you will, of where junglers are going to be, most likely anyway. So Lee Sin here running out of base, he could maybe run bot, thinking, you know what, Canyon is going to run here and just dive my bot lane, I'm going to cover it, but what about if he doesn't? He's just sitting here doing nothing, and eventually he's going to path away from the dragon, giving Vi just a chance to get a free dragon, right? He won't get anything for it. So Lee Sin is forced to run to his Krugs. This is also why running bot is great, because it's a pure 3v2. Vi is a pure +1. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video up until this point. If you did enjoy it, please remember to leave a thumbs up, like down below, comment any questions, leave them in the comment section, of course. And if you want one-on-one challenger coaching for every single role, you can check out the website, link down below. You can also add me on Discord. You can ask me questions about the stuff and how it all works and everything. No worries at all. And yeah, thanks for watching. Don't be shit, bye.